everybody. Welcome to another episode of Purple Insider. Matthew Coller here, along with Dane Mizutani of the Pioneer Press inside TCO Performance Center, as we have just come off the field here from another practice, a very windy practice out there. They built it near the airport, but this is the windiest place on earth, I think, at the moment. Over the last couple of days, it's been pretty wild out there. But we're here. We survived it. We made it, and just got done talking with Jonathan Grunard, so we'll give you an update on the way that he's adjusting to Brian Flores' defense. But I know what you guys want to hear. You want to hear, how does J.J. McCarthy and Sam Darnold look after another practice today, which was not the most intense practice. It was a lot of 7-on-7. There was not a ton of 11-on-11 reps. I can only remember a handful throughout the entire day. But nonetheless, we will find ways to talk about this. And what I was thinking about, Dane, is how can we describe to people who are not here at practice how each of these quarterbacks look, because we're not able to film the entire practice and tweet it out or whatever, as people do in the stands during training camp. So we have to kind of explain to you what these guys look like. So I'm going to give you one Sam Darnold play that I think is emblematic, and I'll walk you through it, of how Sam Darnold has looked. And I want you to start off by doing the same thing with J.J. McCarthy. I want you to give me a J.J. McCarthy play and explain exactly what it looked like to you and what it says about where J.J. McCarthy is right now as the Vikings quarterback. Go.
J.J. McCarthy. All right. Imagine this. It's a 7-on-7 drill. And I'm going to cheat. I'm going to do two plays because they were basically in succession of each other. A good way to figure out right now how J.J. McCarthy is feeling about playing the position, in my opinion, by watching this practice, is there was a little flood route, maybe 5-6 yards to the sideline today. It didn't come together the way it was supposed to, I don't think. The timing seemed to be off. But the receiver who was running the little out route to the boundary stops. J.J. McCarthy throws him the ball, and it lands about 2 yards in front of him, right at his feet. He puts his hand on his hips. He goes and takes another rep. The next play, he tries to throw it 100 miles per hour into a small, tight window, and Theo Jackson almost intercepts the ball. So why I picked two plays, and I cheated. You said one play, but in succession, I think the short arm throw shows if the timing's not there, it's just not quite clicking for him yet. And I think the second play after that is almost a compounding of a mistake of, well, I missed this throw, so I got to get the next one, and I got to throw it as hard as I can. It's a thing I think we've saw, at least in the times we've got to watch J.J. McCarthy right now, and which I think we both would agree, not the most outstanding practices over the last 2 days. Don't want to read too much into these, but there have been things that kind of meat left on the bone. I think he's just trying to almost overthink the position at this point. And then I think those two plays kind of describe that.
So that's a great way to describe it, because I was thinking about myself shooting a basketball.
Yep.
And how I have taken 10 gazillion shots in my life. And if you toss me a basketball right now, without any thinking at all, I will just look at the rim and fire it up and so forth. But if I had only taken 100 shots in my life and you were still trying to teach me the proper technique of the way to do this. All right, get your feet here, get your elbow here, and this is how you want to do it. My first try is going over the backboard, or it's going to be very stiff. It's going to be like, all right, I'm trying to feel this. How do I get this exactly right? Oh, and I missed. But if I were to do those techniques 10,000 times, they would come second nature to me. It doesn't look second nature to him, which it isn't, because he just got here. And when the throw went short, I remember exactly what play you're talking about. My thought was, did he think the receiver was running a different route or on a different yardage, or did he just try to do a certain footwork and didn't put his foot in the right spot and threw it short, or what could it be? Because when we watch him out here, the accuracy has not been pristine, especially over the last couple of days. And again, for the millionth time, the learning period is the learning period for a reason, because they are doing this in almost a high-speed walkthrough when J.J. McCarthy is out there and doing exactly what they told us they were going to do, which is take it very slow. So I think those two plays are perfectly emblematic, that if you hear or read, oh, well, McCarthy almost threw this really bad interception. Well, that is true. And he had a couple yesterday that were tipped in the air and one was picked off. That doesn't mean he's out here just throwing picks to people all the time. It means that it's not at a place right now where they could run it 11 on 11 and have him get everything down, which is what I would expect, and it's what they plan for.
Yeah, and you mentioned the basketball reference. You've taken a million shots. It comes second nature. I think of golf, too. Like, a lot of times the first shot you take of the season, the first time you tee off, it feels pretty good because you're not thinking about it. You're not trying to correct things on the fly. You're not overthinking things. And then as the season goes on, like, you get worse, and then every so often you get better, and then you think you felt it, and then you think it's clicking. And why I bring up golf is because sometimes you'll hit a drive, and you'll be like, there it is. Why can't I do that every time? It's like that with J.J. McCarthy right now, too. There was a in-bending route near the end zone. They were doing a red zone period. And he just puts it on the guy on a button, and when it looks good right now, it looks really good. It's just that consistency's not there, and it's because, like, to your point, this is the learning period. I'm not gonna press the button, sound the alarm about J.J. McCarthy right now because he's had a couple practices where he looks inaccurate. If this persists through the summer, and let's hope it doesn't persist all the way through when fans are here there taking the videos, because, oh boy, if the fans start circulating the videos, then we're going to have to, I don't even know what we're going to have to do. But it's there. You can see it sometimes. You said basketball, I say golf, but I think it all kind of connects.
Okay, here's what I want to do. I want to react to what you just told me irrationally now.
All right.
But with some truth mixed in, okay? So what we just told everybody was, yeah, looks pretty like he's feeling it out, and the golf thing is me to a T. I mean, you've seen it off the tee. When I hit it really well, it's a bomb, and then I go, I must have turned my hips that way. I must have dropped my shoulder, and then the next time you hit it in the woods, that's just all amateur golfers because there's not enough hours.
Correct.
Even if I had the natural talent to be a good golfer, I wouldn't put in enough work, so he's doing that, but he's going to need more and more and more reps. Mm-hmm. That's the rational way to view this. However, let me just throw this out there, though. Are you a believer that accuracy is something that can be improved? Because in college, there were times where he did some of this same stuff, kind of sprayed the ball on certain types of routes. The deep ball was not the best looking when he was in college. And so far, we've seen the same player. Mm-hmm. He didn't show up and become completely different. The bet that they're making is that what he's going to be able to do in the coming months, in the coming 2 years, is to be able to smooth out all of that. So, and as you mentioned, when it looks good, it looks extremely good. Making it more toward that and less toward the balls that are either coming short or flying over people's heads. Are you a fundamental believer that you can change that about a quarterback?
No. No. I don't know if you can just fundamentally change like the touch someone has for throwing a football. I do think you can get more accurate with just like, I'm going to sound like Kevin O'Connell, time on task. I do think that the more you work with the people around you, the more accurate you can get, because that play I mentioned earlier, I think you're right. It might have been the receiver not running the depth that he thought the receiver was going to run, or maybe the timing just felt off. I think accuracy can kind of be built into timing and just how everything kind of fluidly functions throughout the offense. I think Justin Jefferson can make you look more accurate because if you throw it anywhere within a 10-mile radius of him, he's going to catch the ball. But as far as like developing like accuracy with like the way you can feather a football into the layered throws that Kevin O'Connell talks about, I'm not sure how much you can actually like. I think part of that is innate. I think you can get better at some of it, but I do think part of that is innate. So if we're reacting a little irrationally, the thought would be, well, what is the ceiling then? If we're not going to ever get to that level of being able to feather throws across the field, and how good can he get? I don't know. I don't know. I do think that there is a little bit, as far as just playing the quarterback position, You either have it or you don't. And I think Kevin O'Connell's talked a lot about this. He talked about how he couldn't see things develop. He couldn't, when he did see them, he was sailing throws over people's head. Kevin O'Connell likes to talk about the way he played quarterback like he was the worst quarterback ever. And he wasn't. He made it to the NFL. But I think there are levels to it, and I think that probably does speak to the fact that, like, yeah, I think accuracy is also, as much as arm talent and being able to wing it in there is a God-given ability, I think accuracy can be too.
So how much can he improve is actually a pretty rational question. I think if we were irrationally reacting, we'd say he'll never get accurate more than this, and it's going to be a huge problem. There's a bunch of different layers to this in terms of my thinking. I look at certain quarterbacks, Stafford early in his career, even Jared Goff at times, who throw the ball really hard, that when it's in the ballpark, if they have good receivers, they're going to make the catch. But it's not necessarily Drew Brees. Drew Brees is the gold standard for accuracy. I don't know if I've ever seen anyone else more accurate other than Steve Young, and then you'd have to go back, before my time a little bit with Joe Montana or somebody like that. But as far as a lot of quarterbacks go, the velocity is really important in terms of getting it into windows and hitting the right places before the defenders can get there. Josh Allen is not a flawlessly accurate quarterback. And you can make this case for a lot of different quarterbacks in the league that the most important thing is throwing it to the right person on the right play and making the right read. Of course, you can't throw it into the hot dog stand, but if it's not right there and the guy has to go up to get it, well, that's all right. You're going to be able to work around that. You and I both covered hockey in our past. You're a big hockey guy, actually. And when I remember this from covering hockey prospects, that some of them dangled the puck in ways that just made no sense. And then other ones, the puck would bounce off their stick more, and you could improve it. But what usually made the difference was what was around them. And was it playmakers around them who could get them the puck in scoring positions and so forth. And so I think that with something like this, what's going on around you, the context of what's happening, how open are the wide receivers? Are the wide receivers guys who can make contested catches? Can they go up and get the ball? And there may be some times where there's just going to be throws where you go, I don't know. That one just flew on him, and there's nothing you could do there. Baker Mayfield's kind of like that, where he's got a great arm and amazing talent, but sometimes you just go, woo, it just went, I don't know why. And you could still win a lot of games with a quarterback like that. I don't think Jalen Hurts is the most flawlessly accurate, but he's a really good athlete, and I think McCarthy's playmaking and decision-making are what will drive him more than being someone like Drew Brees. But I don't know that it's going to completely go away, this issue of having some touch. If it is, though, the age is going to be a big factor here. Because I think that if he was 24 years old and we were talking about this, well, he only throws fastballs and whatever, that might be really difficult at 24. He can, I think, improve this over the years because he is 21 years old.
Yeah, and I do think that is an important part of the development process, is just we have gotten away from older players being undraftable like they were 10, 15 years ago. Like, I think if you're 24 and you're ready, you can play the position, even if it takes a little longer, as long as there is a rampway for success. It doesn't really matter how old you are. But the fact that he is 21, like, that's important in this entire equation. And that's something the Vikings have kind of cooked into this equation. Now, I don't know if they knew they were going to get J.J. McCarthy out of this draft, but it worked out well where they weren't expecting him to have to start right away. I don't think anyone that they drafted, they were going to necessarily say, you're starting right away. Why? Because they have Sam Darnold, and they went out and they made, a very substantial, at least given, the market around this type of player, a substantial offer for Sam Darnold with the idea that the other guy, whoever the rookie ends up being, now we know it's J.J. McCarthy, can be brought along in a way that doesn't rush him. I think the fact that he's 21 matters, because will he ever figure out, I don't want to call it an accuracy issue, because that's going to...
Right, that sounds like it's a real thing.
Yeah,
we don't actually know if it's a thing yet.
Right, but these anecdotal things that we see where he's sailing the ball occasionally, is he going to be able to develop the touch over time? Possibly, but he's going to have more of an opportunity to do it if he's not rushed in and thrown into the fire when he's not ready if he's actually given a rampway to be successful. And that rampway obviously is just a little bit more palatable when you're 21 and maybe you're sitting out and you're starting when you're 22, 23, even 24. I think that's okay because that's part of like the push-pull of this entire equation that the Vikings kind of put together this offseason was a guy for the future, but also a guy for the present right now. And the guy for the present right now, his name's Sam Darnold. It's not J.J. McCarthy.
The gains also may just come down to him and how much he is able to put into it and make adjustments. The one thing I think about with him, though, is it doesn't look to me like it's a technique issue. It looks like he knows how to throw the football. It looks like feeling your way through the right way to do it, and then also natural touch that is the same as we're talking about a dribbler where something inside of Kyrie Irving's brain makes that ball look like a yo-yo on his hands. And we all know this when we see it, but we have also seen guys who don't have the perfect natural touch become great basketball players if they work on it, the technique with shooting and the right decisions and things like that. So I think that it's something he's going to have to work through, but it won't be kind of the main reason he's successful. Like, oh, he just was so unbelievably accurate. It will be the other stuff. Yeah. And when we see him out here moving around as an athlete, is very, very impressive. That's going to play into it as well. Now with Sam Darnold, the one throw, but I'll go two. Just because you went to.
Yeah.
The first throw, there was a play where Tristan Jackson who's had a very good minicamp, by the way. If you want a little nugget there, Tristan Jackson's looked great out there. He always kind of does in the practice setting. No Jalen Nailor today. We don't know why. If Jalen Nailor has more injury issues, then this conversation about maybe something interesting with him is sort of over. But this was Tristan Jackson's best play of minicamp so far. So I believe he was lined up on the left side of the field, and he's coming over across the field into the back of the end zone. Mm-hmm. And so he's behind the defenders. He's got somebody trailing him. They were probably in man coverage. So he's behind the first level of defenders playing in some sort of zone. And Sam Darnold, when he releases the ball, I couldn't tell who the heck he was throwing it to. He throws the ball, and I'm like, where is it going? And then Tristan Jackson comes flying in and makes the catch, meaning that Sam Darnold threw it with great anticipation, flawless timing at the back of the end zone. And we all went, whoa, okay, that was some kind of throw. And, of course, everybody was like, all right, let's go kind of thing. There was another one where he tried something similar with Justin Jefferson, and it went way over Justin Jefferson's head. And then he kind of went, okay. He didn't look as frustrated as McCarthy looks with bad throws, which I have noticed about Sam Darnold. His demeanor is so much more confident, so much more mature of like, oh, all right, next throw kind of thing. But it was the one over Jefferson's head was thrown so hard and so fast and in the right ballpark, but just didn't get there. And that's probably Sam Darnold and who he is with this arm talent. But when he does something good, it is really wow-worthy out here. And I think that the demeanor of even both throws, where you didn't see a lot different, like it wasn't like he was, jumping through the roof when he made the great play. It wasn't like he was, throwing, a fit when he made the bad play. It was like, well, another rep kind of thing for him. Just, it's been very much on display, the difference in experience with both of these players, I think.
Yeah, one guy has started many games in the NFL. I don't know the exact number. I think it's over 50 between time with the Jets, Panthers. I don't think he started a game last year unless
one, yeah,
maybe one when at the end of the year.
He started one with the 49ers, yeah.
But yeah, one guy has played a lot of football in the NFL, and one guy is still learning the footwork that Kevin O'Connell wants him to throw with in this system. So I think it's easier for Sam Darnold to move on from, maybe a bad throw here or there, and you're seeing that. And it's also, I think, probably a little easier for him to move on from a good throw. I think everything Sam Darnold has done throughout OTAs, now mandatory minicamp, in the portions we haven't been able to see, in the portions we have been able to see, is all he's done is carry himself like he's the starting quarterback of the team. Everything he's done, the media access he gave last week, it wasn't the most rah-rah, exciting press conference we've ever done, but said, yeah, it sounds like a starting quarterback. He just seems like a guy who's been around the block, done this, which he has. And I don't think it's all that surprising when we really break it down to the fundamental sense that like one guy looks much better than the other. I think there was a world in which J.J. McCarthy was always going to be sort of a project for whoever took him. And I think what Sam Darnold can do is he's not necessarily a project anymore. He is what he is. He was probably a project earlier in his career, but now he's 7-8 years into his career, and he has this wealth of knowledge that he didn't have when he was coming out, that J.J. McCarthy doesn't have right now. But when you see a throw like the one you talked about in practice today, where he throws with so much anticipation to Tristan Jackson, that's just a guy, in my opinion, who has seen that play before or seen something like that in the NFL and understands when that ball needs to get released, where that guy is going to be, and is able to throw with the anticipation needed so no one else can get it but the receiver that the ball is intended to. So, yeah, it's night and day right now as far as Darnold and McCarthy. And I think that's kind of, if you've been paying attention kind of throughout this whole offseason, it was always going to be that. It was always going to be Sam Darnold as the starter unless J.J. McCarthy vastly outperformed him deep into the summer. This was always Sam Darnold's job. This was always Sam Darnold's team to start for this year in this vacuum of the 2024 season. And I think we're just seeing it now time and time again throughout practice. One guy looks really, really good, and it's Sam Darnold.
Okay, don't you want to overreact, though? Like, isn't it in our nature fundamentally as football watchers and enjoyers? It's sort of like like some animal instinct that you're trying to quell. You're like, I really want to eat the ice cream, but I said I was going to not have any sugar. There's a part of you that wants to go like, oh, Darnold looks awesome. What are we doing here?
I want to.
Why even draft anybody?
I'm cool overreacting with Darnold. Where I don't want to overreact is with McCarthy.
Okay,
because I think that in this day and age we've seen a couple people clip that. They clip our overreaction about McCarthy, and it's J.J. McCarthy's a bust. That might get clipped. J.J. McCarthy's not a bust. But I'm cool overreacting with Darnold. Maybe he's Baker Mayfield. Maybe he is. Maybe he's the next guy where there's a reason J.J. McCarthy's not starting, and it's because the Vikings are a 10-win football team. I don't know.
Are we using the wrong guy, by the way? I was thinking about this the other day, that we have gone to the Baker Mayfield example because it was the most recent. But it's more like Geno Smith, isn't it? That they bailed on him pretty quickly in New York. And I think that the arm talent of Geno Smith is really spectacular. And it was always kind of the dumb and bad decisions, the circumstances, the pressure of New York and all that sort of stuff. And I guess with Mayfield, he had already been pretty good in Cleveland at times, if not very good. Geno Smith was never good. There was never a moment where you went, oh, well, he's got it, but he just needs the right circumstance, where Mayfield was a Chad Henne play away from going to the AFC Championship game. And with Geno Smith, there was never anything there. So I think if there was like an overreaction, or if there was hey, this has actually happened before recently, it's probably Geno Smith. And then look at his receivers. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. It's a well-coached organization and so forth. I think there might be something there. I agree with you with McCarthy, though, and it's not I make fun of the internet, but I don't fear those people. Like, they just need to get a life or whatever. It's more of, I don't think it's fair to him.
Yeah.
And the same way I viewed Justin Jefferson and bogus rumors and whatever else, which was, this is not fair to the people involved to be spreading this nonsense or talking about trading this person when A, it's not true, they're never going to do it, and B, he doesn't deserve that.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't deserve to be talked about as if somebody that you just trade away for draft picks or whatever. He's one of the greatest players of the generation here. Mm-hmm. Like, what are we doing? And also, the people involved, if you're spreading, rumors and nonsense about that can have implications. People see everything that gets written. So I think there was a responsibility there, and there is with J.J. McCarthy, to say, like, this is the fact of the matter. Right now, in minicamp, they are working along pretty slowly with him, and there have been some tough practices, but that's exactly what I expected. I also remember when they had Pat Elflein play with the backups, and he had been drafted to be the starting center in minicamp, and people being like, Zimmer hates rookies and whatever. Like, this is the slowest portion. It's just that you want it really bad to have these answers. So I think that's where we can maybe overreact a little more with Darnold, because it's on the side of, well, it could happen. And it looks like something's happening out here, and maybe it will and maybe it won't. Speaking, and if you want to go along an overreaction, the Vikings have found the next great tight end in National Football League history, and that is N'Keal Harry. I never would have guessed. So our friend Craig Peters, who works for Vikings Entertainment, great guy, he noticed that N'Keal Harry was working with the tight ends yesterday. Now, none of us, we were all looking at J.J. McCarthy and Sam Darnold, and we didn't notice, so credit to Craig for that. He asked Kevin O'Connell, hey, like, what are you doing there? And so he talked about wanting to develop him as a tight end, which makes so much sense because he's massive. Yep. And I saw it everywhere. I saw it all over the place, like NFL Network and all these other places, former first rounder becoming a tight end. I was like, is this a story? Did I miss something here? I thought Justin Jefferson signed his contract today. But let's talk about it. Do you like it? Do you like N'Keal Harry playing tight end now?
I like it in theory. Like, I think it sounds cool because he's, 6'4", 225, and he
225?
I think he listed. He might 240.
Yeah.
He looks like a tight end. He looks like a defensive end. He looks
massive.
Like an edge rusher. We joke about that. Like,
he's legitimately bigger than Jonathan Gruden.
Yes, we joke.
Actually bigger.
We joke about that here. An insight into practice. We're watching from the pavement, and we've joked in the past, like, oh, the edge rusher just caught the ball. It was N'Keal Harry. It's because he looks unnatural at receiver. So do I like N'Keal Harry switching positions to tight end? Yeah, in theory, it sounds good. He was a first-round pick of the Patriots not too long ago as a receiver because of his ability to catch the ball, to be a mismatch in space. And I think those things could be translatable to the tight end position, in theory. I'm not going to get excited about it in practice until we see it really happen. Because right now, it's just an idea. I think it's an idea the coaching staff kicked around. This guy has a lot of talent. He's a former first-round pick. Can we figure out a way to maximize that? It's not happening at receiver. Maybe there's a way we can unlock something in him with his skill set, his size, his strength at tight end. But why I don't want to overreact in that direction is because tight end's really freaking hard to play. You have to learn the position of a receiver and an offensive lineman, basically. That's why it's so hard to play. But given kind of the theme of the show, yeah, let's overreact and say N'Keal Harry is going to be a important part of this progression of the offseason because TJ Hawkinson's not going to be ready right when the season starts. So they are going to need some tight end reps. Josh Oliver is a monster blocker, but he leaves something to be desired sometime in the pass catching game.
And sometimes the run after catch.
Yeah,
game,
and sometimes he gets so excited that he fumbles. So I think there is like a need for at least an option, another pass catcher. Johnny Munt, greatest third tight end ever, according to Kevin O'Connell. He'll probably be in line for a lion's share of the reps with TJ Hawkinson out. But they signed Robert Tonyan. They obviously are switching N'Keal Harry positions to tight end. And I think they're doing it for a reason because they understand that this offense, the way that TJ Hawkinson commanded so many targets and it was such an important part, you're going to need that part of the offense. So maybe it can be N'Keal Harry. I think it would be really fun if it was N'Keal Harry. I just don't know if we can necessarily say right now, and we can treat it in the way it has kind of taken on a life of its own. I don't know. I put it as a note at the bottom of my story yesterday because it just didn't feel like that big of a deal. But it is.
It was on like ESPN. It was like one of their top headlines.
Yeah.
All right, let me try. I'm going to give this a shot because what's the date? Is it June? What do we got here?
June 5th.
5th. Okay. So I got plenty of time before if this goes wrong and he's cut tomorrow or whatever, you'll all forget about it by the time training camp comes around. So let me give this a shot. N'Keal Harry is one of the best blocking wide receivers I feel like I've ever seen. There are almost no wide receivers who can go to battle with linebackers, but they put him on the field a few times last year to block specifically. So there's one place to start. He can actually handle one of the toughest parts. He can catch the football. When you throw him the ball, we've seen him actually make several spectacular catches out here, and it's not one of those things where it kind of hits and bounces around and someone. It's like it goes in there, like nice and smooth.
His hands are huge.
Is it enormous? Yeah. It's a big man, if that hasn't been mentioned already. And what tight ends do when they catch the ball is they mostly are schemed open in space. Mm-hmm. There are very few tight ends. This is why you pay TJ Hockenson. But there are very few tight ends who are lining up one-on-one with someone and they're putting on a juke move and then they're getting, breaking open on man coverage or whatever. Most of the time it's, all right, find your space inside of a zone. So if N'Keal Harry, who has experience with the offense, can understand that part of it, he can make catches that come his way, and he can block well enough to make a case for himself as a tight end. That was my best try. Normally these things don't work out. When I did minor league baseball, if a batter couldn't hit in the minors, so they play in college and then they come to the minors, but they had a strong arm, they would almost always try them at pitcher just to find out. I saw a guy balk like 3 times because he had no idea how to even just hold the ball in a game. That's what the minors were for. Yeah. That's what minicamp is for. It's like the minors where you're just, going through and seeing if there's something there. But one time we had a second baseman who they turned into a pitcher and he just started striking people out. And I think he got to AAA. Yeah. So every once in a while, these things come through. So the best of luck to N'Keal Harry. I think the real story here from minicamp is Robert Tonyan. Yeah. Robert Tonyan looks like a dude. He's been making plays almost every single day out here for the Vikings. And I think if they started week 1, if we just went off the lineup we've seen right now, I think Robert Tonyan's my tight end 1.
Yeah, he might be because and this is not some random guy. He got 17 touchdowns from Aaron Rodgers with the Green Bay Packers one season. Robert Tonyan's been around the block. He's done this. And frankly, I think he offers a little bit more at the peak of his powers. What we've seen Robert Tonyan do is be better than Johnny Munt. So, yeah, that based on what we've seen so far, the way he's kind of just slowly but steadily progressed through, where he's been lining up. He started with the third string, and he was with the second string, and now he's getting some reps with Sam Darnold and the other starters. Yeah, that's a sneaky signing that I think could actually end up paying dividends for the Vikings. It's a little surprising he was even available because, good tight ends are kind of hard to find, and at one point he has proven that he can be a good tight end. But yeah, the real story is probably Robert Tonyan is ahead of everyone else, or is ahead of N'Keal Harry, even though everyone else is probably talking about N'Keal Harry more than Robert Tonyan.
Right. I was thinking about something and why a N'Keal Harry story catches a little fire. I mean, one, it was a Patriots guy, he's a first-round draft pick. For some reason, the intrigue of first-round draft picks just never dies. Yep. Laquan Treadwell will sign somewhere, and they'll Laquan Treadwell signs whatever. And you're like, Laquan Treadwell? I mean, what difference does that make? But it's the fact that he was a notable first-round draft pick, and when they don't work out, there's always this, well, maybe he finds it. Maybe he finds it. Maybe he finds it at tight end. I guess we'll see. I did want to talk about how funny it is that the good players in circumstances like this get completely ignored. So here's what I want to do. I want to go through good players on the Vikings and just talk about them for just a second, because we talked to Jonathan Grenard today. Jonathan Grenard had maybe 3 or 4 of us around him asking him questions, and a really bright guy, real sharp dude. And I think that had he been the big offseason signing, you would have had everybody running over to Jonathan Grenard. He's going to make $20 million a year. And we're like, oh, hey, man, what's up? Just whatever. Yeah. Not a big crowd or anything. I think Jonathan Grenard, what fascinates me about him is the different shape of the edge rushers than what we had before, where you were very physically intimidated by Danielle Hunter and Everson Griffin and Marcus Davenport. Oh, my gosh, this guy was enormous. And now you're like, oh, you're not bigger than N'Keal Harry. But I just get the sense from Jonathan Grenard that he's going to fit extremely well with Brian Flores. They seem to attract players or target players who really understand the game very well. And he was teaching us football during this little, scrum out there in the wind. I just get a really good vibe from the way he and Brian Flores are going to gel together.
Yeah, and I think they're going to gel so well together because of how versatile Jonathan Grenard's proven to be. You can put him on the outside. You can put him on the inside. You can use him kind of as that chess piece wherever you want to generate pressure. I think Jonathan Grenard's going to be able to do that. And he's already kind of developed this like leadership role within the defense, which is really cool to see kind of organically happen. He was talking today about how Dallas Turner is a freak. Like Dallas Turner looks the part of a superstar edge rusher in the league when you just watch him move out there. Runs a 4.4. But Jonathan Grenard said, I'm taking him under my wing. Like I'm taking a lot of pride in his development. So you're seeing that leadership. But then you're also seeing, it was a cool little nugget. They all, like the defenders, the edge rushers all do like an ab circuit after practice now. They don't need to. They're all ripped. They all have six-packs. But they're doing this core work because Jonathan Grenard, he brought that along with him from Houston. And he said, I just do ab work every day after practice. And it started with 2 guys, and then it was 3 guys. And now it was 10 edge rushers. And then after the DBs got off the field, they were ready to do it. And everyone's doing, ab work because Jonathan Grenard just did it. So, yeah, I think it's cool to see, that leadership role kind of show up. I'll be more interested when the thing's actually going, when we actually get to see him rush, and it's not this mandate of keep everyone off the ground. I'm excited to see Jonathan Grenard go at it against Christian Darrisaw, and then we'll see what we really got. One more nugget. I promise we'll stop talking about N'Keal Harry. But you mentioned good players don't get any shine right now because everyone likes a redemptive arc narrative. We're talking to Jonathan Grenard, 3 or 4 of us. There's 15 people talking to N'Keal Harry over by the entrance to the locker room. So that speaks to what mandatory minicamp is. Everyone wants kind of what could happen or who could kind of rise up this rank. And we almost tend to overlook the good players. But I think it's an important part. The team's going to win games because of the good players. No disrespect to N'Keal Harry, but the team's going to win more games because of Jonathan Grenard than it will because of N'Keal Harry.
I like that you had the note there, and he talked to us about that with the ab thing or whatever. But that's where we're at with good players at this time of year. It's they
do crunches,
working on his abs, and I said that we would not be doing that. Maybe you will. That's not me. That's not my thing. I jog and play basketball. Yeah, but I'm not a lifting.
I lift weights, but we don't do we skip core.
Who needs it other than pro football players? Yeah. Last thing I do want to talk about, because we spent so much time on N'Keal Harry, is the wide receiver depth spot. So yes. I mentioned Tristan Jackson made a nice play there, and Brandon Powell is notably more of a slot wide receiver. As you watch the group, and I know that you're a Lucky Jackson believer, as you watch the group, do you feel that they need to go to free agency and ask if there's a Dalton Reisner type of free agent who's still hanging around out there, that maybe if you're Hunter Renfrow, you thought you were going to get more money and you weren't, or have we gone past go? Are we done? Is this roster done? Because if there's going to be one more person added, I think it's got to be at that wide receiver position, because even if I don't know, maybe Jalen Naylor has some absence or whatever. We were caught up with Jefferson. We didn't ask about Naylor yesterday, and they don't have to tell us at this time of the year if it's an injury. But that made me think, all right, that's the guy we're supposed to be intrigued by. Powell is a proven player, but a ceiling on that. Is there something else they need to do? Or do you think that they might run to tight end stuff or something like that? Is there another answer here?
Yeah, we always talk about the who's wide receiver 3, because it's obviously Jefferson, Addison, and then KJ Osborne's gone, so that spot seems to be up for grabs. Right now, as we kind of watch through day 2 of mandatory minicamp, and Jalen Naylor's not there, and I think he could be a good player based on what we hear and the way they talk about him, but he's just never available, it seems. He really struggled through injuries last year when it seemed like it could be a jumping off point for him. We don't know if it's an injury right now, but he's not here for a mandatory minicamp. So when you start to kind of go down that line of who's on the team and who plays receiver and who could be fitting into that number 3 receiver role, like, yeah, I tend to be more inclined to think that he might not be on the team right now. That at least it has to be at the forefront of Kwesi's mind and the front office's mind that maybe we do have to canvass this receiver market. Maybe we're not done. Maybe the team is not completely set in stone. But where I would kind of pull back and hesitate about that is, I think we were talking about this today on the field, is like you said, they've done this before. They've brought in a Tajay Sharp. They've brought in a Kendall Wright. They've brought in a Jordan Taylor. Like, those free agents that aren't on the team always sound sexier than the people that are just out there in front of you. But there's a reason they're not on the team, because they're not on any team right now. So it could be a money thing, and I think with Hunter Renfrow it probably is. He probably thought he was going to get more than he is, and maybe he's willing to settle at a lesser number to be a part of an offense like this. But I don't know how you could be super confident with the wide receiver 3 position. I think Brandon Powell is a really good player. But I think there are just kind of limitations with what you can do with him on the field. I think he plays really well out of the slot. But if you want versatility in your receiver room, like if you want to be able to put Justin Jefferson in the slot and use him as a cheat code because nobody can defend him in close quarters like that, well, you can't really bump Brandon Powell out to X or to Z. There are just limitations there. So I think, yeah, I think there has to be something. If Jalen Naylor is maybe not ready, or maybe this is the year that Tristan Jackson proves he's ready to take the next step. Maybe Thayer Thomas, like in year 2, takes off in a way we haven't seen. And I'm willing to give those guys like training camp to prove that. I'm not saying go out and sign Hunter Renfrow right now. But if we get through training camp and we're not like intrigued by a wide receiver 3, then yeah, I think you have to go sign one.
I would much rather see it play out myself than going out and signing a veteran that might not have much of an impact. The list goes even longer. I mean, the Michael Floyd signing, we thought that was going to be a thing, and that was absolutely nothing. Tavares King was a guy who had a big game, I think, for the Giants once, and they signed him off of that one big game. They've been doing this for a while, and normally you find these quality players in the same way with KJ Osborne. You draft one, you develop them, and Thayer Thomas does intrigue me. I mean, this is where we're at right now, but he moves well and he catches the football.
Yeah.
And to the point about Brandon Powell playing just the slot, that might be a little bit of an antiquated idea from us, though, because I thought the same thing, like, it's going to be hard to get him open. They have splits that they condense sometimes that basically everyone's in the slot in a way. And the other thing is, too, that if your plays are designed for 3 guys and you line up on the outside, well, someone's going to cover him because he can catch the ball. So if you're aware that, all right, he's lining up outside, he's going to run, a 9 route or something, someone's going with him. He's not going to draw extra attention no matter where he is on the field. So you could still do your entire concept that's designed 1, 2, 3 for Jefferson, Hockenson, and Addison. It's just not necessarily like going to target him unless it's an emergency or in case nobody does cover him. He is competitive. He's very smart. He catches the football when it comes his way. He was really good in training camp last year and then stepped in at times. Maybe we're underappreciating him as a player who's developed over the years into this role. They seem to think so by the fact that he's here, and that will be something that we watch come along. But the fact that Naylor wasn't out there is one of those, like, oh, man, I don't know what it is, but it's always something, it seems, when it comes to him. So anyway, how many games do you think this team will win? Well, that's a way to end the podcast, isn't it? Like, what do you think? Did you do we didn't talk about this, right? The W's and L's. I asked Alec the other day if he had picked the schedule, and he said no.
I haven't picked the schedule yet.
What?
No.
What do you guys do on schedule release night? Talk about your travel plans?
Yeah, I book hotels.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah.
That's smart. I haven't done that. Golf trip at Jacksonville.
Yeah,
let's
do that. How many games do we think they're going to win?
Yeah. Like if you were picking the schedule, this is both of you are going to get your own podcast where you pick the schedule.
We will, yeah.
But just off of, like, you've watched them in minicamp and OTAs. Well, how many wins is this team? 8?
8.
Okay.
I think 8. I don't think they're making the playoffs. I don't think they're going to just be deep into the bottom of the basement of the NFC North. I think they're going to struggle with the division's really, really good this year. But they get to play, I believe, a third place schedule. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's going to help them. They're going to secure some wins here and there. Like, I think they're an underdog against the Giants in the opening game, but like, I think they can beat the Giants.
Yeah.
Like, it's there's going to be games, and when I do my W's and L's on my schedule show, we can kind of go deep into that. But yeah, I think 8 wins. I think below 500, probably flirting with 500, but they're not winning the North this year.
Yeah. I'm ready when you're ready to pick the schedule. Like,
Yeah.
I'll be it's an open invite when you decide if you're on a beach vacationing or whatever you're going to do over the next 6 weeks, and you think, well, I'm a little bored. Let me pull out that schedule. Like, no, stop. We're doing that on the show.
I would love that.
All right. Sounds good. Well, there you go. There's your minicamp day 2 report. There's a minicamp 3. There is another OTAs next week, which is weird. I don't understand the scheduling, why it was different this week. I'm actually going to be away from that. I might need you to dial in from here or something so we could do a podcast for next week breaking that down. But only a few more practices for us to get a look at here before we really have a good sense for what things look like going into training camp in late July. So thanks, everybody, for watching/listening, and we'll catch y'all later. Football.